There are three options: burgers, pizza, or sushi. You really like burgers, so that's your first preference. Your second choice is pizza, and you put sushi last. Your friend prefers pizza, then sushi, then burgers, and your other friend prefers sushi, then burgers, then pizza. Now, if you choose burgers, it can be argued that sushi should have won instead, since two of you prefer sushi over burgers, and only one prefers burgers to sushi. However, by the same argument, pizza is preferred to sushi, and burgers are preferred to pizza, by a margin of 2-1 on each occasion. So it seems like you and your friends are stuck in a loop. Burgers are preferred to pizza, which is preferred to sushi, which is preferred to burgers, and so on. This situation is known as Condorcet's paradox. Condorcet died before he could resolve this problem with his voting system. He was politically active during the French Revolution, writing a draft of France's constitution. In 1793, during the Reign of Terror, when Le Montaigne came to power, he was deemed a traitor for criticizing the regime, specifically their new constitution. In the next year, he was arrested and died in jail. Over the next 150 years, dozens of mathematicians were proposing their own voting systems, or modifications to Condorcet's or Borda's ideas. One of those mathematicians was Charles Dodgson, better known as Lewis Carroll. When he wasn't writing Alice in Wonderland, he was trying to find a system to hold fair elections. But every voting system had similar kinds of problems. You'd either get Condorcet loops, or other candidates that had no chance of winning would affect the outcome of the election. In 1951, Kenneth Arrow published his PhD thesis, and in it he outlined 5 very obvious and reasonable conditions that a rational voting system should have. Condition number 1, if everyone in the group chooses one option over another, the outcome should reflect that. If every individual in the group prefers to eat sushi over pizza, then the group as a whole should prefer sushi over pizza. This is known as unanimity. Condition 2. No single person's vote should override the preferences of everyone else. If everyone votes for pizza except one person who votes for sushi, well, the group should obviously choose pizza. If a single vote is decisive, that's not a democracy, that's a dictatorship. Condition 3. Everyone should be able to vote however they want, and the voting system must produce a conclusion for society based on all the ballots every time. It can't avoid problematic ballots or candidates by simply ignoring them, or just guessing randomly. It must reach the same answer for the same set of ballots every time. This is called unrestricted domain. Condition 4. The voting system should be transitive. If a group prefers burgers over pizza and pizza over sushi, then they should also prefer burgers over sushi. This is known as transitivity. Condition 5. If the preference of the group is sushi over pizza, the introduction of another option, like burgers, should not change that preference. Sure, the group might collectively rank burgers above both, or in the middle, or at the bottom, but the ranking of sushi over pizza should not be affected by the new option. This is called the independence of irrelevant alternatives. But here's the thing. Arrow proved that satisfying all 5 of these conditions in a ranked voting system with 3 or more candidates is impossible. This is Arrow's impossibility theorem, and it was so groundbreaking that Arrow was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1972. So I want to go through a version of his proof based on a formulation by Giannakopoulos. So let's say there are 3 candidates running for election: Aristotle, Bohr, and Curie. But we'll refer to them as A, B, and C. And we have a collection of voters that will line up in order. So we have voter 1, 2, 3, and so on, all the way up to N. Each of these voters is free to rank A, B, and C however they like. I'll even allow ties. Now the first thing we want to show is that if everyone ranks a particular candidate first or last, then society as a whole must also rank that candidate first or last. Let's arbitrarily pick candidate B. If, say, half of the voters rank B first and half rank B last, then the claim is our voting system must put B either first or last. And we'll prove it by contradiction. So say this is how everyone voted. If our system does not put B first or last, but rather in the middle, say A is ranked above B, which is above C, then we'll get a contradiction. Because if each of our voters moved C above A, then by unanimity, C must be ranked above A. However, because we didn't change the position of any A relative to B, A must still be ranked above B. And because we didn't change the position of any C relative to B, C must still be ranked below B. And by transitivity, if A is preferred to B and B is preferred to C, then A must be ranked above C. But this contradicts the result by unanimity. And that proves that if everyone ranks a candidate first or last, then society must also rank them first or last. Now let's do a thought experiment where every voter puts B at the bottom of their ranking. We'll leave the ranking of A and C arbitrary. Well then, by unanimity, we know that B must be at the bottom of society's ranking. And we'll call this setup Profile 0. Now, we'll create Profile 1, which is identical to Profile 0, except the first voter moves B from the bottom to the top. This, of course, doesn't affect the outcome, but we can keep doing this, creating profiles 2, 3, 4, and so on, with one more voter flipping B from the bottom to the top each time. If we keep doing this, there will eventually come a voter whose change from having B at the bottom to B at the top will first flip society's ranking, moving B to the top. Let's call this voter the pivotal voter, and we'll label the profile Profile P. Profile O is then the profile right before the pivotal change happens. Let's now create a profile Q, which is the same as P, except the pivotal voter moves A above B. By independence of irrelevant alternatives, the social rank must also put A above B, since for all of our voters, the relative position of A and B is the same as it was in Profile O. And B must be ranked above C, because the relative positions of B and C are the same as they were in Profile P, where our pivotal voter moved B to the top. By transitivity, A must be ranked above C in the social ranking. This is true regardless of how any of the non-pivotal voters rearrange their positions of A and C, because these rearrangements don't change the position of A relative to B or C relative to B. This means the pivotal voter is actually a dictator for determining society's preference of A over C. The social rank will always agree with the pivotal voter regardless of what the other voters do. We can run a similar thought experiment where we put C at the bottom and prove that there is again a dictator who, in this case, determines the social preference of A over B. And it turns out this voter is the same one who determines the social preference for A over C. The pivotal voter is therefore a complete dictator.
Well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay. Hi. So, what you're implying that the last pivotals voters to essentially dictators is not just that's not the case. And we need to go back and go by definitions of what a dictator is. Real quick, a dictator is essentially a person that has the power to make the decisions of society regardless of the vast majority approve or not. And to essentially say that these guys, the pivotal voters, are essentially dictators is just not correct, because in order for them to make an effect in the change of society, they need to rely on the people. Unlike when it wasn't a dictator, that's not the case. They don't need to rely on the people. So it doesn't really align. It doesn't really equate to how you're describing a dictator.